Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I bring you executives, entrepreneurs, founders, thought leaders, artists, musicians, you name it, in crypto and blockchain all around the world. And today I have an amazing guest. I'm looking forward to this interview. I'm actually pretty excited about it. My guest name is Iris Nevins, and she is the founder and CEO of Umba Daima. Hopefully, I pronounced that right. Umba Daima. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Umba Daima has two pronunciations. So the other one is Umba Daima. So sometimes you'll hear me say both.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. Let's kick things off and ask you first of all, what is your background, and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
Yeah. Yeah, logical. That's a good question. So, you know, short version is I'm originally from Miami, Florida, born to Jamaican immigrant parents. And when I went to, I grew up around a very diverse group of people, mostly immigrants, mostly Latin and Caribbean immigrants. And so I've always been very kind of, I would say, worldly in some way. And then I went to this international program in high school where I got to go to school with kids from all over the world for 2 years. And so that made me even more kind of a global citizen where I started thinking about global problems. So I'll just say that to preface, like, that's a very important part of my story and how I've become who I am. So after that, I went to college. I studied economics and Black history, and started to really start thinking about the wealth gap and the ways in which historically oppressed groups. One of the primary ways that oppression happens is by limiting their access to resources that can improve their standards of living. And so we see that for the oppression of women, we see that for the oppression of immigrants and various different groups, Black folks, etc. And it happens all over the world, right? But in the United States, it's a very specific history. So after that, I moved back to Miami after college, and I started teaching. So I taught middle and high school social studies, and I also was a community organizer doing like grassroots community organizing work around homelessness and mass incarceration, police brutality, things like that. I very quickly became jaded by politics. I felt like the whole left versus right kind of narrative was just unproductive, and a lot of the movement people were, good-hearted and well-intentioned, but not very effective. And so I started looking at technology as an alternative to address the issues that I really care about, um, and human rights problems and economic development and so forth. So I became a software engineer. I went to a coding bootcamp in San Francisco. Um, Got my first engineering job at Mailchimp. Uh, Amazing company, amazing leadership. When I joined, I believe I was employee number 750 or somewhere around there. By the time I left, they were at, I think, over 1,500 people. So they were going through a rapid growth phase at the time that I had joined. And I learned a lot working there. I was luckily able to take on a number of leadership roles, and eventually became a manager, an engineering manager. And so I really learned so much about building an organization, building a company, building teams, building product. Um, and as I was doing that, I launched my company, Umba Daima. And so I would say I do think that my background is logical, even though it's a very winding kind of path that I took. I think I have a lot of different experiences that have given me a wide range of skill sets and a wide range of an access to a lot of different perspectives that actually lends itself very well to the work that I do now, which is running my company. My company is at the intersection of essentially technology, community, and um, technology, community, and art. Or you could say technology, community, and finance, even, as some people say. Um, and so we're really passionate about the digital divide, about the lack of technology adoption around the world, and closing that digital divide, and helping people onboard into emerging technology, which includes Web3, crypto, NFTs, the metaverse, etc. But it also includes artificial intelligence. And in some places, it includes just general kind of software as a service. And, the most people are underutilizing the internet. And that's what we want to address.
Great. So that tells me what you do. But something I found important about your organization that a lot of people don't stress is you have listed set of values, right? How do these
Mm.
values play into your organization and your culture and how you're building your business?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we do have a listed set of values. Really quickly, we have our values as collaboration, excellence, compassion, equity, and diversity. And sorry, what was the question? How do the values do what?
Fit into your business. You're trying to go what role, what level of importance, or how important are they, and why do you make them that important?
Yeah, so our values are really important in terms of in terms of being kind of like uh, a guiding light for us. When you're building a business, it's very likely that you're going to pivot, and you're going to pivot probably multiple times in order to, strike that balance between doing something that you enjoy and doing something that's sustainable, that generates revenue and keeps you alive. And I think in that process of trying to pivot and strike that balance, sometimes people go in a different direction from where, like, just they might go way off into a different direction. And so I think our values really help to keep us centered and aligned in terms of what we're ultimately trying to accomplish and how we want to accomplish it.
That's what was missing in my businesses because I pivoted over the years and I didn't have those set of values to keep me as a guiding light. That's why I asked. Important. So, why do you feel it's crucial to help make technology accessible and available to everybody?
Yeah, you know, technology is a really amazing thing. And, we look at technology now as like software, hardware, etc. But thousands of years ago, technology was just innovation. Really, it was just the tools that you used to make to create efficiency, to um, create to be more effective, right? It's being able to dig a hole with a shovel instead of your hands, right? And then you can dig holes using tractors, right? Like, there's just the power of technology is that it allows people to get back more of their time by using technology to increase their output, to increase their productivity, and to decrease their costs. What's happened is that technology has been primarily accessible by the wealthy or wealthier people living in wealthier countries, and so they are benefiting from technology immensely. Think of, for example, the ability to have in your business, for example, as a small business owner in the United States right now, it is so much easier to set up a business um, and do it in a cost-effective way than it was, decades ago, because you have all this software that you can use to manage your books, to manage your finances, to manage your payroll. Like, There's so many automated systems that you can set up. You have people that have one person, businesses that are making a lot of money, and that's because of the power of technology. Then you have people that, then you have the fact that once you're exposed to technology in that way, you're a lot more likely um, to develop, to create an interest in your children to want to be able to build tech. So a lot of people that are tech literate, have children that go into engineering and those kinds of careers, and then they become the innovators that create the new tech, right? And that tech solves problems that are relevant to them and important to them. Then you have all these millions and if not billions of people around the world who don't even have internet access, right? So how can you actually, build businesses and services and advance in this new technologically advanced world if you don't have internet access, or if you do have internet access, you don't really know how to use it because people around you are not really using it, in that way. So you just don't really know, you don't know what you don't know. And that exists in other countries, but it also exists in the United States, right? There are people in the United States that just don't have the right exposure. And so I think that once we get more people using technology, that's available to them. What we have to make technology available, right? But once we make it available, then we have to teach people how to use it. Once they know how to use it, they're actually going to be able to radically impact their lives. They have more access to information. They have more access to problem solving. They have more access to, they have a greater ability to create businesses that can be successful, right? And then you have, these people will be able to start, and their children will be able to start creating technology and become innovators that create technology that solves problems that are important and relevant to them. I envision a world where communities that are struggling or that have various issues don't have to go to politicians to solve their problems, right? They can say, hey, I can think of a solution, a technological solution to help solve this problem, and they can build it and they can implement it on their own with the resources of their community and the resources of the people that care about that problem as well. And I think technology has the ability to make that happen.
Yeah, I agree. I came up with some. I saw some opportunities for what Chat GPT could do.
Mhm.
This in the past couple of days. So um, that takes me back to when I was in landmark education back in way back when 2007 8. They said that if a pie chart contains all of knowledge, 1% of it is what you know, 1% of it is what you know that you don't know, and then
Mm,
98% is what you don't know that you don't know. You know?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it probably is even. I would be surprised if any one person knows 1%. But then then there's the breakdown based on where you come from, based on your zip code and the country you live in.
Yeah, I agree. So let's talk about those diverse populations, right?
Mm.
How do you help those diverse populations across the world onboard them into these emerging technologies, and how would you onboard them into ChatGPT and blockchain, crypto? How do you do that? How do you help?
Yeah, this is a really good question. This is something that I have been doing a lot of research on recently, and I recently set the goal that I want to go back to school and I want to study this, um, in more detail from a sociological perspective, right? The history of technology and technology adoption. Um, but my understanding is that there's, depending on the population, there's different levels of issues. So in some populations, it's literally just about access to internet, right? You have to start there, and they may not have internet infrastructure. They may not have proper broadband networks. They may not have networks in certain like remote areas, for example, or the networks that they do have are very unreliable. There are parts of the world, like the Philippines, South Africa, Nigeria, etc., where there are outages regularly. So internet is, even if they have it, it may not be reliable, right? So I think in certain places it's about infrastructure and business people who have the resources, whether it's governments or investors, investing in infrastructure, right? Which is not something that we are prepared to tackle. So, one of the things that we've had to really kind of accept is that our focus is in the beginning going to have to be a lot more on populations that have access to internet, um, even if it's inconsistent access, and focusing on helping those people understand how to better utilize the internet that they have access to, and then going from there. Um, in places like the United States, for example, internet adoption is has increased significantly just over the last 20 years amongst adults. But when it comes to businesses, for example, a lot of businesses um, are still not utilizing the internet properly. You have business owners that are not using software like QuickBooks. They're still doing manual payroll, for example. They don't have a proper online marketing system, right? They don't know how to use SEO to um, to to create a consistent funnel of traffic to their website to help build out their business. There's just, I mean, the list goes on and on. And then you have people that need access to even more advanced technologies like the metaverse and NFTs, for example. They might have they might be a couple tiers higher up on the scale, the level of like tech literacy, but then there's the even more advanced tech that they still need to learn how to use to be able to get to that next level and be ahead of the curve and not be one of those companies where, you know, things just like happen to you, right? Which is what happened with the internet, right? People weren't paying attention to the internet, and then next thing you know, your business is left behind. Um, and so we want to work with people at all of those stages and help them improve their businesses and their lives, their schools, if they're teachers, for example. I used technology quite a bit when I was a teacher, and it was very effective. I was able to my AP US history students were the first students in school history to pass the AP US history exam. And I used technology to help me do that, to help me accomplish almost the impossible. That's a whole other story. But there's just so much that people are not um, doing when it comes to the internet.
I remember AP history in high school. That was a fun class. I loved it. Um, yeah. So I know. Let's talk about specifics, right? You have
Hmm.
some projects that you're an incubator too. You have some projects that you're incubating. Could you
Yeah,
offer a walkthrough of some of those important highlight projects?
yes, absolutely. So the first project that we are prioritizing right now is called Tech Misfits. And Tech Misfits is a social networking app for STEAM professionals, organizations, and learners. STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And so the idea is, STEAM, even amongst STEAM professionals, right, and organizations, there's a pretty strong kind of awareness of the importance of technology in advancing society and creating opportunity. And there's a lot of different folks that are engaging in different efforts to try to educate the people around them or trying to create opportunity. So the idea is to bring all these folks into one place where they can actually find each other and collaborate and share resources, share information, collaborate on initiatives that help to close the digital divide and increase adoption. At the same time, we also want those people to be able to share what they know with people that are just starting to learn. So we also are going to be bringing um, people who are learners, people who are learning about tech or developing their tech literacy, for example, onto the app as well. And we're going to be doing educational programming, content, etc. So it's kind of like a mixture between a social media app like Facebook, for example, and an academy. There will be classes, there will be content, there will be, video lessons and so forth. We've done a lot of education in the past. In the last year and a half, we've done over 240 events, and over 30 of those were in real life, and then we've done um, lots of online calls, meetups, classes, etc. And so we're very familiar with kind of the education space, the event space, the programming space. I also have my experience as an educator, so we're just kind of bringing all of that together within this community. In order to access the app, you have to have an avatar. And so we're releasing the first set of memberships will be these avatars, these digital avatars that represent what a truly diverse tech community could and should look like, or tech industry could and should look like. And it's a beautiful collection. It's taken us over a year to work on this collection because it's so complex. We have different body sizes, different facial features, different skin tones, different genders, etc. So it's like multiple collections in one. And then we plan to release somewhere around 15 to 20,000 of these avatars. And then once you have an avatar, that's your key to unlock the mobile app. Then from there, you can engage, you can join forums, you can create forums, and you can participate in conversations. You can post opportunities, find opportunities, and we'll be adding additional features over time, like the academy section, the classes, the meetings, etc. So that's Tech Misfits, and we're really excited about that because one of the things that I've found in my just kind of time is that I think one of the biggest issues that we have when it comes to addressing social justice is too many people trying to do the same thing and not communicating with each other. And it diminishes everyone's efforts across the board, right? Even in one city, for example, you might have 30 different STEAM organizations, and then they're all going after the same resources, right? They're all going after the same grants. They're all going after the same, donations and so forth, right? They'd be able to accomplish a lot more if they were actually communicating with each other and collaborating. I truly, truly believe that. And so that's a part of what we want to facilitate is wide, large scale, industry wide collaboration, and to facilitate that collaboration through software. So that's Tech Misfit. Another cool thing about it is that once you have the avatars, you have commercial rights to the artwork. So you can use the art to create your own brand or create, derivative art or merchandise or whatever it is. So I think it'll also be really cool to see how everyone that's a part of this community is also using the art to build additional value for the community and for themselves. So that's Tech Misfits. And then our second project, that's our big priority as well, is called Assemble Now. And Assemble Now is an event logistics and staffing app. And people might be like, event logistics, like what does that mean? Well, when you're coordinating an event, whether it's a party, a meetup, a workshop, a seminar, a webinar, a Twitter Spaces, right? The power of events is community engagement and community building. That's what it is. You, even if you're not making money directly off of that event by selling tickets, there is ROI that's being created because you're bringing people together and you're creating a powerful experience for them that they might remember forever. They're going to make connections, make relationships. You can change someone's life from an event. Just as an example, we did an event in Atlanta, Georgia, and through that event, one of the artists that came to that event was able to meet someone that ended up featuring them in a Christie's drop, right? So they went from attending this event to now being able to drop with, you know, arguably the largest, most famous art auction house in the world, right? This is the kind of value that you can create for people through events. And that's just one example. There's so many others that I could give. So, anyways, events are really kind of one of the most powerful ways to build a community and to engage your community. And community building and marketing community building is the new form of marketing, right? That's where companies are moving towards. If you look at all the mega companies, Google, Facebook, um, Uber, Apple, Salesforce, etc., they're all starting to invest heavily in the event space because they're now looking at their consumers as not just their customers, but also their community members, right? And there's a lot of statistics showing that customers are now, there's so many options now when you're picking a brand. You also want to have a deeper relationship to that brand. You want there to be a sense of trust. You want there to be an alignment with your values. And so building a community is a way to retain your customers, retain loyalty, and continue to grow that community through word of mouth. So so we are a community-driven brand or community-driven company, and we've used events to build a community of over 6,000 people. And in the process of hosting these events, we found a lot of logistical challenges with event planning, especially when you're event planning on a budget. You might need to coordinate speakers, you might need to coordinate moderators, you might need to coordinate talent if there's performers, for example, whether it's a comedian or a singer or a drummer or whatever. You might need to coordinate caterers, venues. Then you have to pay everyone. If you're paying people, you have to make sure everyone knows where they have to be, when, what time. Then there's the marketing of the event and getting people there, right? There's a whole lot of logistics involved. And if you're doing one event a year, it's probably no big deal. But if you're doing one event a month or one event a week, it becomes very time consuming. And so we built this software to enable community driven brands to be able to cost effectively scale their event programming. And so our strategy is essentially to use this software to help grow our community, Tech Misfits. It's going to be kind of the key driver behind Tech Misfits to grow that brand and keep that community engaged. But we're also going to be selling that software to other companies and other communities that can use it as well. And we're really excited to see how we can help communities grow and prosper and become, strong and diverse as well. I know I'm talking a lot, but one of the key kind of exciting benefits of a software like this is, for example, let's say you want to expand your community into a new demographic. Let's say you're trying to tap into like the Latina community or the Indian community or the LGBTQ community or et cetera. Or maybe you want to expand into a new region, right? Latin America, right? How do you source people to host your events, to bring people together in these places that you're not familiar with, right? So that's another problem that we want to solve for, so that you could arguably host events all over the world without even having to leave where you are.
I love the fact that you're talking because you just explained to me the answer to my first question to you, which was why are the values important? And it's all about the community, and you need those values as the binder, like kind of like the book. You have a binder for the book. You need to tie everything together, and it looks like the values do that. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty cool. So let's see. What do you? I'm gonna ask you this. Maybe you already explained it, but how do we close the digital divide so that we can solve meaningful problems and create a better world? I know a lot of people out there don't want to create a better world. They want to create a military world. But how do you create a better world together by closing that divide?
Yeah, so I think I think we touched on this a little bit earlier. A part of it is going to involve public policy, and having public and private institutions work together to create proper infrastructure so that people have access to the internet. Then, in addition to that, it's making sure people have the devices that they need to be able to access the internet, making sure there's laptops in schools, making sure people's phones are able to do what they need to do to access the internet, access certain software, etc. And then I think from there, a lot of it is education. And, people arguably, education is not the easiest thing to scale, right? If you're looking at traditional education. So I think there's a lot of innovative ways that you can scale education. And that's one of the things we want to figure out how to do with Tech Misfits. If you look at Duolingo, for example, Duolingo is a beautiful example of combining education with software to provide to teach people in a highly scalable way. Are you familiar with Duolingo? Yeah. And for those that are listening that don't know, Duolingo is an app that you can use to learn languages. But the way that it's done is you learn a curriculum, but it's gamified. And so you're doing all of these activities and quizzes and so forth to test your skills, to learn and then test and then practice your skill sets. And then you can track your points and you can see how other people are doing. And people are using this app to learn languages. So, it's a lot cheaper than putting someone in a classroom with a teacher, right? Like now you're talking about probably 50 times more. I made up a number, but that's 50 times more expensive than this app. So I think figuring out how to combine like traditional like educational principles with innovation and software is a big part of how we'll be able to scale education worldwide.
I agree. You said something a little bit earlier, that everybody's working on their own, like they're working in a silo instead of working together. And one of the things that I joined when I first got into crypto in 2017 was they used to have these conferences, not the Bitcoin Maxi conference, but these conferences where it was blockchain for social impact, right? And for some reason
Mm.
they stopped having them, right? Um, I don't know why, but what do you what do you think is the build, like if the we had more conferences like blockchain for social impact? What do you think would be possible when people collaborate together and join forces?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll see bigger impact. I think that, for example, I think you'll see bigger impact. I think you'll see conservation of resources, right? I think, for example, about the conferences that I've been to the last couple of months and events that I've been to, the crypto community has tried to co-opt conferences like South by Southwest and Art Basel and so forth by having like thousands of crypto people show up and host their own satellite events and so forth, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you have 10,000 people at a conference and you got 500 events, I mean, you're talking about 20 people per event and what that probably means is that some events there's going to be 8 people, right? And so I've just been to a number of conferences where the turnout was so low, but there was 5 other conferences or events that were exactly the same happening down the street, right? I think this is a massive waste of time and resources. So, I think there has to be kind of less of a less me centered um, focus and more of a collaborative focus. I mean, I think people are going to have to work on their egos, which is not an easy thing to do. I know myself as well from personal experience. It's not easy to do. And people are going to have to extend an olive branch and reach out and figure out how they can collaborate and share their resources. Um, And I mean, I think how do we get people to do that? That's something we're trying to figure out. It's gonna require some trial and error, but I'm really hoping that through tech misfits, we'll have, like we want to have the grace and the enough funding to be able to take our time to figure out exactly how to make this work. I think having, bringing people all together, bringing people with similar interests in one place is the first step. Then we figure out how do we get them to collaborate. I think a big part of how we can do that is through the software, right? But how do we design the software to facilitate that exact thing? That's going to have to be an iterative process that we'll learn and improve over time.
Makes sense to me. Um, so yeah, so I want to thank you. I thank you very much for your time today. This has been an amazing conversation. I really, time flew. I enjoyed speaking with you. I have one last question. Um, and it's an easy one. It's how can people find out more information about you, about Umba Daima, what you do? How can they find out anything like that? Any more information about that?
Yes. Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate the time and being able to talk about this topic. It's something I'm very passionate about. In order to find me, you can go to umbadaima.com. That's Umbadaima. Umba Daima stands for Create Forever, by the way, in Swahili. You can also say Umba Daima. Umba Daima is the Swahili pronunciation. Um, you can also go to, if you look up Iris Nevins, Iris, my last name is Nevins, Nevins. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's not that hard to find me. There's a good amount of press coverage and so forth. So you'll be able to track me down pretty easily and reach out. And we're looking for collaborators. We're looking for community partners. We're giving away lots of free NFTs to people that are interested in tech misfits, free avatars for your community, for your network, for you to join the app. Um, and we're looking for users to test, to beta test Assemble Now as well, which is the event logistics and staffing app.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.